afternoon, good evening to everybody, depending on what part of the world you're joining us from. As Hernan said, my name is Ron Lowry. So I'm the Eastern Area Manager and Encapsulator Technology Specialist for Hazard Control Technologies. My other hat I wear is I've got 37 years in the fire service, and I'm also a fire chief with a volunteer fire department in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. So this is a product I not only use at work that we're going to talk about here today, and some of the issues that we face. It's something that I face, in both in my professional life and in my business life and personal as well. So just to start a little bit, just some information on the company itself, Hazard Control Technologies. It's our mission here at HCT to make the world a safer place. We want to do that through leadership in fire prevention and protection and suppression using eco-friendly, innovative encapsulator technology. HCT is headquartered just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. Everything is manufactured here at our facilities in Atlanta. But as you can see from the webinar today, both HCT and the product has a global reach. So we have either subsidiary companies or distributorships on every continent with the exception of Antarctica. So a nice global reach to the product. So what we want to talk about today is not just collisions, but roadside incidents, crashes, fires, fuel spills, just those hazards that puts us in harm's way out there on the roadways. The major, to me, I look at the first major concern, the danger for firefighters operating on these roadway incidents as firefighters being struck and killed. So according to the NFPA statistics from 2019, 8% of the firefighter line of duty deaths were from those firefighters being struck by a vehicle while operating on a roadway incident. And that's just looking at the firefighters. That's not including EMTs, paramedics, or police officers, plus just the general public. But, it's definitely a dangerous situation. I know here in Pennsylvania, we just had 2 state troopers that were killed yesterday, struck by a vehicle while helping a motorist that was stranded or walking actually on the interstate. Just some basic crash statistics from 2021. This is just what I found from the First Responder Safety Institute website. So these are by no means all encompassing, but just some statistics about firefighters that were either struck and injured, struck or killed, or apparatus that was struck while operating at roadway incidents. So we look at the ever-evolving hazard of the vehicles on the car. The roadway incidents we're responding to today aren't the same ones we were responding to 10 to 15 years ago. Technology's changed. The vehicles themselves are changing with, hybrid cars, the amount of Class D metals that are in the cars, in the fully electric vehicles. We've got major automakers like Ford and General Motors, Mercedes, pledging to have the majority of their fleet, 50% or more products electric by 2030 and literally get out of the gasoline powered vehicles by 2035. So that total shift, this picture here off to the right was a BMW i8 that caught fire up in New York. Again, fully electric. Some of the issues we face with those vehicle fires we're heading to today. So when we think about these roadway incidents, they're multi-class incidents, the Class A materials that are involved with the cars themselves, tires, the seat frame, the seating material, the plastics, those kind of things that are in the vehicles, various Class B fuels, and not just with fires or accidents. This picture I stole here, that's becoming commonplace now in the US. So with the price of gas now going through the roof, folks are actually resorting to drilling out gas tanks. So we have the hazard of drilling out that tank, potentially causing a fire and having a fire, or if not, more fuel in the tank than they're prepared to try and steal. So now we have a large potential fuel spill all over the side of the road, potentially, again, putting us in harm's way. And how do we actually handle those fuel spills? Absorbents, all we're really doing with absorbents is creating now a flammable granular from picking it up with absorbents. And while the foam, that only gives you a temporary suppression of those Class B fuels. And those materials can vary depending on what's being used in the car or what's being hauled. So it can be E10 gasoline to E95 fuel to diesel to biodiesel to heptane for some of our international clients, or even just straight crude oil that's being hauled over the road that can be involved in an incident. Again, the Class D materials, these are becoming more and more prevalent in today's vehicles. The last I heard is we're on average of about 250 pounds of Class D material in a modern vehicle. Just some of the components. Again, it used to be the steering wheel and the steering column we were concerned with, but it's so much more than that now. Engine components, the dash components, actually the substructures of the vehicles themselves, as well as the steering wheels, the steering columns. We can see it here, the front end structure, cam covers, the instrument panel, engine cradle, the steering wheel, the transfer case, transmission case, down to some of the Teslas, the actual door assemblies are made out of magnesium. So those Class D components are becoming ever more of a concern with the modern vehicles. And then again, the ever-present hazard, the lithium-ion batteries, that we're finding them now not just in vehicles, but over-the-road trucks, buses, cars, motorcycles. They're being used in every facet of transportation anymore, even into marine. There's even talk now of some helicopters and potential planes that'll run straight off of lithium-ion batteries. So it's affecting our whole transportation structure, not just motor vehicles. And that new technology is creating new hazards. And you need to ask yourself, are you prepared to handle that hazard? Right now those battery fires are categorized as a Class A fire, but that's not really what they are. It's a multi-class fire hazard that we need to be prepared to approach and suppress. And you need to ask yourself, are we really prepared, and is your department prepared to handle that type of an emergency?
Next tonight to the deadly
video here. This was, it was last summer down in Houston with the Tesla fire that was on autopilot with the two guys sitting in the back seat, letting the car drive itself.
Surrounding a deadly crash near Houston involving a Tesla Model S. The charred wreckage captured on camera after it crashed.
As you see, there's not much of that vehicle left. They're burning that intensely.
The Tesla's high-energy battery reigniting over and over again. Firefighters trying to put the fire out for 4 hours with more than 30,000 gallons of water. The fire eventually put itself out. Now tonight the question, was the Tesla running on autopilot? Firefighters found the men in the front passenger seat.
As we look at that, 30,000 gallons of water to potentially put that fire out. Here's another electric. This one from over in Germany or Austria. And again, though we don't have all the information on this particular fire like we do on the incident from Houston, you'll see when they pan back here the amount of apparatus that's actually involved with this. As the incident goes on and more trucks are showing up, providing more and more water. to attempt to suppress this fire. Again, again, additional manpower, additional equipment, bringing that additional water, because we need that copious amounts of water if that's what we're going to use as our main suppressant agent. It's just plain water. Again, potentially in excess of 30,000 gallons, 30,000 gallons to suppress. I don't know, what fire department, aside from potentially taking a hydrant, if there's a hydrant along the highway, that's a lot of tanker shuttles to be spending hours on the interstate back and forth, putting our members in harm's way for those types of incidents. So let's look at the encapsulator agent and what it can do for us for these highway type incidents. So what is an encapsulator agent? Again, it's a fluorine-free, or what is F500? A fluorine-free, non-corrosive, biodegradable encapsulating agent. It's UL listed for Class A and Class B fire suppression. It's been tested since 2008 for those lithium-ion battery fires. And here in the U.S., we're actually listed on the EPA's National Contingency Plan as a surface washing agent, meaning that the agent can be used to treat those flammable liquid spills on the ground, on the soil. So, definition of an encapsulating agent: it's a water additive whose basic building block are spherical micelles. Those micelles are capable of encapsulating both carbon molecules as well as polar and non-polar hydrocarbon, vapor, and liquid molecules. That's how that encapsulating agent separates the fuel from the oxygen on a chemical molecular level. Think of that micelle as a chemical safe that can actually lock that hydrocarbon molecule up inside of it, chemically separating the fuel from the oxygen. Playing animation here that's going to go over what an encapsulator agent is and what happens when it mixes with water. I'll kind of start and stop the animation.
Encapsulator technology.
Discuss it.
The next generation of fire.
So encapsulator technology is the next generation of fire and hazard mitigation. Again, that basic building block is this spherical micelle. To discuss it, we need to talk about the basic encapsulator agent molecule that consists of a polar head. Polar head loves water. Non-polar tail that fears water. It's hydrophobic. It'll do anything to get away from water. As soon as the agent enters the water stream, these F500, these encapsulator agent molecules, instantaneously and automatically orient with the non-polar tail inward and the polar head outward, forming that spherical micelle, protecting those non-polar tails from the water. As soon as the solution leaves a hose stream or a sprinkler head and a water droplet is formed, the micelles that are closest to the surface break apart, because it takes less energy for those micelles, for those non-polar tails, to stick out of the water droplet than it does to stay in that micelle formation. What happens is you have these non-polar tails sticking out of the water droplet, bringing the polar heads with them, forming a skin of F500 around the outside surface of the water droplet, and then millions of these spherical micelles within every water droplet. It does three key things for you when this happens, when the solution mixes with water. One, it changes the heat reduction characteristics of water from steam conversion to thermal conveyance. These F500 molecules on the surface work like a heat sink. They rapidly absorb the heat and transfers that heat energy to the micelles within the water droplet, so we can cool much more efficiently up to 10 to 20 times faster than plain water alone. Secondly, you have the encapsulation of those hydrocarbons within those spherical micelles, within those chemical safes. And then lastly, you'll see some information where we're actually interrupting the free radical chain reaction at the same time. So the important characteristics of the agent. So when we talk about encapsulator agents and we talk about fire chemistry, we know from Essentials of Firefighting that in order to achieve suppression, we need to remove one leg of the fire tetrahedron. So if we're using plain water on a fire, we're generally interacting with that heat leg. We're trying to cool the fire down below its auto ignition temperature, suppress the heat, suppress the fire. If we're using a foam product, be it Class A, Class B, we're trying to mechanically, manually separate that fuel from the oxygen by putting that foam blanket layer down between the two, mechanically separating them. And if we're using an ABC extinguisher, we're trying to interrupt that chemical chain reaction. If you're using a CO2, we may be working to cool a little bit, but generally we're trying to deprive the fire of oxygen. So all of those other agents primarily work on one leg of the fire tetrahedron simultaneously. With F500, we get multi solutions. We can rapidly cool. We can encapsulate the fuel, so we're removing the fuel. We're separating that fuel from the oxygen on a chemical molecular level, and we're also interrupting that free radical chain reaction. So we're working on the entire fire tetrahedron simultaneously. We're not trying to suppress one leg of it. So when we get into those unique features, that first one is the encapsulation. We test that through this NFPA 18A section 7.7 spherical micelle stability test. That's the test protocol that we use to show that we have an encapsulator agent, to show that we're capable of encapsulating those micelles. So what we have here is, a basic flammable liquid pit fire, potentially 40, 50 gallons of diesel fuel, a 25 or 30 foot pit. So I'll ask the group, just looking for suggestions, how long do you think, or how much foam do you think it would actually take to blanket that fire and extinguish it? Figuring that we need to maintain that foam blanket through NFPA protocol for up to 15 minutes. Anybody?
David said 36 gallons.
So 36 gallons, I've heard that when I throw this question out, probably between 30 and 40 gallons of foam to suppress that fire and go ahead and put a blanket down over it. Well, now let's look at some of the new fluorine-free products. We're testing has shown some of the new fluorine-free foams, the FFF foams, that you could need 1.5 to up to 3 times the amount of the current C6 foam to achieve that same level of suppression and maintain that blanket. So now we've gone from potentially 30 gallons to 90 gallons or more to put that fire out. So let's go ahead and see that fire. So again, F500, 3% solution. As you're going to see, no special application techniques. So, we're going to be using the dispersed pattern here, sweeping across the fire, encapsulating those vapors. We're not looking to form a blanket. We're looking to cool and encapsulate. So we're sweeping across the fire, encapsulating those fuel vapors that are being released from the fuel being heated by the fire, in addition to cooling that fuel to stop it from vaporizing. So as you see, very rapid suppression, cooling, extinguishment of the fire.
Hazard Control Technologies presents F5.
So if we compare that to the 30 to 40 potential gallons of C6 foam, or potentially in excess of 100 gallons of the fluorine-free foam. That fire was extinguished in under 30 seconds and used less than 1.5 gallons of F500 concentrate to achieve that suppression. So when we're looking at the amount of product that you need compared to some of the foaming products for those Class B fires, it can be dramatically less. So those benefits for encapsulation, as we talked about, you don't really need to form a blanket. We're not looking to form a blanket. We're looking to encapsulate those vapors. And it can actually make the scene safer in an instance like this where you don't have a fire, but you potentially have fuel on the ground, but you have to make an extrication from that vehicle. You can actually encapsulate that fuel, remove the flammability of the fuel to make it safe for those rescuers to go in and do the work they need to do to get that patient extricated from the vehicle. It can also mean less cleanup, and it's a very, very environmentally safe solution. That next feature, that rapid cooling, again, the F500 on the surface, absorbing that heat, transferring that heat energy to the micelles within that water droplet, rapidly reducing the temperatures, eliminating the fire and the heat, even potentially for somebody that may still be in the vehicle, rapidly cooling that vehicle. So thermal imaging video. Sorry, let me lower this sound on this. So again, thermal imaging video of a vehicle fire. See how rapidly the temperatures are dropping over here. 20 gallon per minute flow on that nozzle. So very low flow, very little solution being used. But again, rapid suppression of the fire, rapid cooling of the vehicle, of all the things that are in the vehicle, the materials in the car, both the steel, the plastics, that's just as important as the steel is cooling that interior, the foam rubber, the seat material that's off-gassing those toxic gases. If we can rapidly cool them, we can improve that IDLH atmosphere. So your cooling benefits, less fire damage. How often do we roll by after a vehicle fire and see not only the damage to the vehicle, but the damage to the infrastructure, the roadway, either the asphalt melted, if it's underneath a bridge, potentially damage done to the structural elements of the bridge. You need less water, so that potentially on a highway incident means less apparatus on the road. Again, spending less time on that highway operation is a great safety benefit to the firefighters when we're talking about the time we're spending on the interstate and the hazards that's associated being out in that moving traffic at high speeds. And then again, less resources, just putting less of those responders at risk. Excuse me. So that quick tip, again, as I said, getting off the highway quicker, taking our members out of harm's way, not needing as many first responders in harm's way. We look at the first 2 weeks of 2020 alone in the United States, 7 first responders were killed by vehicles while assisting the public at roadway incidents. So again, very dangerous place to be. My opinion, some of the most dangerous places we can be operating in. So that toxin reduction, again, very important. We can actually reduce both the soot, the smoke, and the toxins within the smoke. Again, a very huge benefit when we're operating on a roadway. So we have smoke from the burning vehicle that's obscuring the roadway, that's limiting visibility, again, putting responders at risk. So in this demonstration, we have 5 burning tires. Again, we're using that same low flow 20 gallon per minute nozzle, but watch that heavy black smoke. We have that heavy black toxic smoke. we're looking to suppress the fire, but we're also looking to improve the visibility. If you're working on a roadway incident, the vehicle's still burning, but where's that heavy black toxic smoke? Where's that obscuring smoke? We can eliminate that smoke, eliminate the toxins, improve the visibility, and make the scene safer for everybody. The motoring public, our first responders that are operating in that roadway. Again, rapid cooling, very little runoff, very little waste. So when we look at the testing that was done around that reduction of both the soot, the smoke, and the toxins, we can go all the way back to the late 90s with testing that was done at Clemson University. With that testing, they were burning toluene. They did multiple tests where they injected a plain water mist into the smoke column where they were treating the smoke. Then they duplicated the test with using a 3% solution of F500. What they were looking at, excuse me, during this testing was the light transmittance through the smoke. So what was the opacity of the smoke? How dark, how dense was the smoke? How much soot and byproducts of combustion actually accumulated inside of the inverted funnel that they were using? And lastly, what was the toxicity of both the soot and the smoke that they were drawing off during the testing? When they compared the results, they found that when the F500 was used, there was a 68% increase in visibility, a 97% reduction in soot in the byproducts of combustion, and a 98.6% reduction in soot toxicity. This is from that Clemson University study. As you can see, this information, along with vapor reduction experiments, suggest an interruption of vapor phase combustion, possibly by inhibiting the radical coalescence into soot particles. So just what we saw with those burning tires, stopping those free radicals from coming together and forming the soot, the smoke, and the toxins, eliminating that hazard. So benefits of the toxin reductions, again, when we look at the risk of cancer in the fire service and how we're suffering those exposures, we can lower that risk, improving firefighters' health, hopefully in the long run. Less toxic runoff that's being generated by extinguishing that fire. Again, as we talked earlier, increasing the visibility on the roadway, not obscuring those lanes with the heavy, dense smoke going across the highway, which is an increased safety benefit all around. Now we're going to go in and actually look at some of the testing data we have for lithium-ion battery fires, because that is the new up-and-coming hazard that we all seem to be struggling with how to handle. So here's just a quick video of some comparative testing of various products that were done. This testing was actually done for Tesla over in the Netherlands. So here we're comparing foam, dry powder, and F500 on a matching lift. We'll turn this one up a little bit, because if you haven't heard a lithium-ion battery burn before, it will get your pucker factor up pretty quickly. As you see here on the right, the F500 rapidly suppressing that fire, cooling the battery, which that's what we need to do to suppress a lithium-ion battery fire, is to cool it, to stop that thermal runaway, to stop that thermal chain reaction from taking place. As you can see with the dry powder, you have no way of removing heat with a dry powder, so you have no way of extinguishing that fire. You can't put a lithium-ion battery out with a dry powder extinguisher. And the foam extinguisher, the same way, you cannot extinguish that fire with the foam extinguisher. Based off of that testing, the testing was performed by Kiowa. They're a third-party testing agency like UL here in the U.S. This, I forgot to mention before we played the video, that testing was joint sponsored by both Hazard Control Technologies Europe and Johnson Controls. We have a partnership with a Johnson Controls subsidiary in Europe to manufacture F500 fire extinguishers. And again, as I said, that testing was done for Tesla before they would allow the extinguishers to be put in their facilities over in Europe. So as you can see, published by both Kiowa in their report and now currently by Johnson Controls in some of their brochures about lithium-ion battery fire suppression, the powder extinguishers do not apply. The foam extinguishers are not recommended. Excuse me, but the F500 extinguisher can be recommended for the lithium-ion battery fires. So while that was a small-scale test, again, you know, for the sake of this presentation, we're talking about, you know, larger battery systems. So this was actually testing that HCT Europe performed over at a technical university in Germany. They're actually using a full-size battery. So this is multiple modules making up a full-size battery for an electric vehicle fire. This one is going to be, this fire is going to be suppressed with a standard sprinkler system. So there are 2 sprinkler heads not set directly over the batteries themselves, but in either end of the room that the burning chamber that they're burning in, and the batteries are around 10, 12 feet above the battery surface. So up at the ceiling of the burn room, they've put in a sprinkler system with 2 sprinkler heads. We'll go ahead and speed this up a little bit. Takes a little bit for the battery to go into thermal runaway. So again, much larger volume of fire as we saw in the smaller batteries. But yet, you'll see here in a second as the agent starts to discharge from the sprinkler heads, the same type of result, almost instantaneous suppression of the fire. Close.
Oh, there we go, 1,095.
So the eco-friendly we were talking about before, you know, some of the concerns with the fluorinated foams that are out there, we don't have with the F500. The F500 is a fluorine-free product, as we said earlier, so we're not concerned with those health hazards that are associated with those fluorine-free products that are current, or with the fluorinated products that are currently out there, like the AFFFs and the ARAFFs. HCT also offers a variety of engineered solutions and equipment. That TKO nozzle that you saw in some of those scenarios earlier, again, it's a 20-gallon per minute nozzle, self-educts right through the nozzle. You can hold up to 2 liters of agent directly below the nozzle to self-educt. It's a nice, very efficient for vehicle fires. Also is nice because there's literally no waste. Your water all the way up to the nozzle. Great video here.
Hazard Control Technologies presents F500.
That 20 gallon per minute flow on a vehicle fire. Again, rapid suppression, very little runoff. What I want you to notice is this fire over here never touched with the agent, but yet the fire self-extinguishes. It extinguishes because they cooled that vehicle down enough. They cooled it down below that temperature for that paint to go ahead and burn. Again, just like we saw in the thermal imaging video of the vehicle fire, rapid knockdown, rapid suppression, rapid cooling of the fire. And again, very little runoff, very little agent used, very little water needed. So especially on those highway incidents where, we may be rolling in worried about, how much water we're bringing to the fight with us. And are we going to need to bring a tanker, or are we going to need to bring, 2 or 3 engine companies to have enough water to put that fire out? Here, rapid suppression, very little overhaul needed. You can even tell from the way that vapor is slowly rolling off of the car, how much cooler it is. We know when we use water on a vehicle fire, how long it continues to off gas for, and we're sitting there waiting for that vehicle to cool. Or again, just like on an electric vehicle fire, we're actually flooding the vehicle out. And the reason we're doing it is to try and get it cool enough that the tow operator can go ahead and get the vehicle off the roadway and we can get back off the highway. Here, you can achieve that, much less water, much less solution, a lot less time on the highway, keeping your folks in that danger zone. Again, extinguishers the same way. 3 ounce or 10 ounces of F500 into a 2.5 gallon water can gives you a 3% solution. This European water mist hose is what the bulk of the lithium ion battery testing has been utilized. This type of nozzle design, it works very efficient. It's very efficient with the F500 for not only lithium ion battery fires, but Class A fires and Class D fires as well. Another thing that really, I think, from the fire service point of view, we know that, funding is always an issue, be it career, combination, or all volunteer. So EFR, Emergency Fund Recovery, is a company that Hazard Control partners with. They can actually do emergency response billing for you. And I know personally here in Georgia, we've probably a year and a half ago, the Morrow Fire Department started using EFR, and they're pretty much monthly now sending bills out and getting reimbursed for the motor vehicle accidents that they're responding on. It's a really great solution. It's an app you can put right on your phone that you collect all the data from. It's as simple as taking some photos at the scene of the vehicles that are involved and some of the driver information, and then going ahead and turning.
There's been a crash. People are hurt. Fluids are leaking. Traffic needs directing. As you arrive on the scene, your priority is safety, care, and containment. The last thing on your mind is the cost of the call. But here's a question. Should your department have to pay for someone else's recklessness? If a city ordinance or county resolution says you're entitled to reimbursement, your department has a right to its money. And that's the problem. Do you have the time and the resources to chase it? We do. We're EF Recovery, one of the most experienced providers of billing services. Welcome to Response Recovery, a claims management program that recovers incident response dollars and gives them back to your department. With the Response Recovery program, we have the infrastructure, insurance company relationships, and knowledge of the law to get you the money you deserve. Here's how it works. Using your fire reporting system, we locate and extract the MVA, obtain the incident report, and fill out all the incident paperwork. You approve the claim, we file it, and we pursue collection. If the claim is wrongfully denied, Our team of experts pursues the insurance company and makes sure the claim gets paid. Submitting information to us is easy, and the claims review process is fast and convenient. There are no minimums or special requirements, and training is a snap thanks to our templates for manpower, consumables, and equipment that save you time. Best of all, you're in full control of the program. You determine who we speak to, the insurance company, the responsible party who caused the incident, or both. Our customer service is second to none. We use the maximum care, consideration, and professionalism whether we're working with you, with insurance companies, or with residents in your community. We have safeguards to ensure accuracy and compliance, and we bill for all types of runs, so whatever incident your department responded to, we'll get to work on the reimbursement for it. If you're ready to recover the reimbursable expenses that you've earned, and you want to work with an experienced, seasoned partner, you want this flexible program. The Response Recovery Program from EF Recovery. Because your department deserves every dollar it's earned. There's been a crash.
So in conclusion, if we look at everything that we need to, versatility is essential in these types of accidents, these type of incidents. On a vehicle fire, we never know what's involved when you get there. Is it a hybrid? Is it an electric? Is it Class D metals involved? What type of fuels are involved? All those questions that need to be answered. So versatility is key. Increasing health and safety benefits. If we can drop some of those toxins, especially when we're talking about the plastics and the hydrocarbons that are burning with a vehicle fire, we can lower some of those and get rid of that IDLH atmosphere faster. Hopefully we're lowering our risk to our guys being exposed to that type of dangerous environment, increasing your health and safety benefits. Again, getting you off the roadway faster, getting back into the station quicker, spending less time out there, decreasing those injuries and potential deaths due to the motor vehicle collisions. Again, decreased resources. Hopefully we don't have to run 2 and 3 engine companies to make sure we have enough water on scene to handle the incident. Increasing both the wear and tear on the apparatus and just our members and putting more folks at risk doing that emergency response. The eco-friendly benefits, no soil contamination, no PFAS water contamination, no wildlife contamination, hazardous cleanup cost savings, and again, just increased community health benefits. So again, what I'm asking you to do is embrace innovation. I look at F500 as potentially being, that next phase where we went from horse-drawn to motorized apparatus. We went from no breathing apparatus to breathing apparatus. I think encapsulator agents are what takes us from water to the next step in fire suppression capabilities. Questions from you folks? I thank everybody for your time. Great questions. I hope it was informative and you got a little something out of it. If you think of any questions after the fact, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's what we're here for. If you want to set something up with your department in person, please feel free to reach out. We're more than happy to come out and work with everybody.